Hey, Micah,
Hey, Jen.
what are you listening to this week? Welcome to season 5 of What Are You Listening To? The weekly podcast created to foster community through music by sharing the stories behind the songs that soundtrack our lives. Some of the songs are old, some new, all good. I'm Jenn Tully, and this week I'm joined by author and musician Micah Blake. Micah has transformed a childhood passion for music into a remarkable career. What began as a personal refuge during high school has evolved into a rigorous academic pursuit, culminating in a master's degree in music theory. Micah's expertise has since touched the lives of hundreds through personalized instruction and tens of thousands more via online platforms. His book, Talented or Not, Here I Come, delves into the mindset behind musical achievement. Today, Micah is on a mission to help individuals break free from their self imposed limits and embark on the exhilarating journey of learning their first instrument. This week, Micah and I are going to get to know each other through 4 songs. 2 are his picks and 2 are mine. Which songs do you think we're going to discuss? Tune into our conversation to find out. And in case our song picks are new to you, we'll publish a playlist with the episode so you don't miss a beat. Micah, I'm so excited to have you on the show. I love your philosophy and approach, and I cannot wait to talk more about that. So let's get going. Micah,
Thank you so
what
much.
what are you listening to this week?
Thank you so much for having me on the show. And
Yes.
I just love how you explore music in this way. So much of the time, it's hard for people to actually break out of their shell and listen to other people's music. This week, I started listening to The Phantom of the Opera. We watched it with my 14 and 15-year-old. And I really wanted to pick All I Ask of You from The Phantom of the Opera.
Yes.
Andrew Lloyd Webber is just a genius. And
Agreed.
one of the things that has been really on my mind a lot lately is different styles of love songs, because I've been working on a project with some people, helping them write love songs. And this song in particular is always been super interesting to me. For those who are familiar with The Phantom of the Opera, the play is just a masterpiece.
Yes.
And every single character, if you step into their shoes, it's interesting because you just feel like, I guess I probably would kind of act that way if I was them, which in a lot of movies, it's not that way at all.
Yeah.
But an interesting part of the song is I love how it portrays the miscommunication of romance between guys and girls, where he's saying the whole time, oh, let me do this, let me do this, let me do this. And she says, just say you love me,
Yeah.
just say this. And he's just trying to do all these fancy things. She's just like, just say you love me. And then they finally, get back in alignment together at the end. But I love how it portrays that miscommunication that we all feel in romance sometimes, while trying to have that passion flow.
Totally. Oh my gosh, I love so many things about what you said. One, I love that you watched this with your kids. Did you watch
Yeah.
the original London performance, or did you watch the movie from
We
2004?
watched the movie.
Yeah,
So
that's a really good
the
version. It's a
movie,
really good version.
it came out a year before my wife and I started dating. And it was one of
Oh.
the first movies we watched on our official dates together. So it has a special place for me there too, of course.
Yeah, being a theater nerd, sometimes I'm really finicky about when they translate it to a movie. And
Mm-hmm.
I just thought this one came out beautifully. And, Phantom of the
Yeah.
Opera, I think if you ask people to name a musical, probably 9 times out of 10, people are going to name Phantom of the Opera, right? It's so well known. It's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
folks have seen it. And still, the music from it is so rich. And I love that you chose this song as a study on love songs. That makes so much sense. sense
Mm-hmm.
because it really is. And it's funny that you even brought up the miscommunication part because I never really thought of it like that until you said it. I just love how beautifully written it is. Like you can tell, I know that whenever you're writing for a musical, you've got to move the story along oftentimes in
Yeah.
songs. And so that does require a certain eye, but this song is just so beautiful. There's a line early on, and this is like my shower song, when I'm like performing for no one. But
Yeah.
when it says, whenever the lyric is say you'll love me every waking moment, turn my head with
Mm-hmm.
talk of summertime. And I just always thought like that's so theatrical and beautiful and just like what an amazing thing to say or hear from someone.
And it's so like Christina is such an interesting character because she's
Yeah.
so confused the whole time. And this whole song is talking about how she wants to be in the sun and to be done with the darkness. And
Yeah.
everything before that was her being enchanted by the music of the night
Yeah.
and everything about the phantom. So it's every part of her lyrics and everything is about I'm choosing this direction right now. And then
Yeah.
she's confused again in the next scene. But
But I love too. I love that like the ending of this song or sort of like the fine point on it is yes, at the very end they sort of land on love me, that's all I
mm-hmm.
ask of you. And I just always thought that was so like simple and beautiful and yes, for this being such a truly like dramatic big show, like this has always been one of my most favorite songs from Phantom.
Yeah, maybe, definitely for me also.
Well, one common thread that I noticed that we'll talk about as we go through the playlist here is that we sort of inadvertently kind of had to focus a little bit on duets this week. So that wasn't something that I
Yeah.
planned, but the more I went through it, I was like, oh, interesting. That third track is not exactly a duet, but came from a singer who was once part of a famous duo. So that's a little teaser for track
Oh.
number 3. But let's go ahead and talk about number 2. I'm so excited to talk about this song. I love this band. I think you're the first person that has brought them to the show. So please tell me about your second pick.
So my second pick is Coastline by the Hollow Coves. And I just love everything about this band is they paint a memory that I
Mm,
didn't have, but I have had, if that makes sense. They're so good at not having specifics, but having a feeling of a place. So
yes.
Coastline is interesting because everyone wants to go to the coast to be refreshed, to have vacation and everything, but the song Coastline is also about leaving your old self behind
Mhm.
and starting new in a more I guess a healthy way.
Yeah.
That's how I see it in a lot of ways. And about 2 years ago, we went through some crazy stuff, and I was just like, you know what? I'm done with any music that's not positive for me at this moment. And this band just popped up out of nowhere, and I was like, every single one of their songs is amazing, but Coastline specifically stuck out for me.
Is this song seems I love this song. Hollow Coves is an Australian band. I love their instrumentation. It sounds so
Mm-hmm.
simple, yet it gets really rich, especially towards the end. You have some horns come in. Like it's so beautiful. How, as a music teacher and a person that studies music theory and sort of loves music, how does your brain hear a song initially? And this might be a tricky question to answer. Like, do you hear it thinking like, "Oh, I would love to play this," or do you hear it thinking, "Oh, this is just a beautiful song," or is there any way to really answer that question? Like, I've always wondered
I
that.
guess I can only answer it personally, obviously.
Yeah.
Musicians come in all ranges, but I have trouble hearing lyrics
Okay.
personally. I don't know if I had a really bad speech impediment when I was a kid. And I think it's probably something psychologically in the same realm.
Mhm.
So I hear music and I hear the way the melodies go before I think about lyrics ever. Usually, sometimes I don't even think about lyrics in a lot of songs. Um, So that's the first thing I note is how the feel of the song is flowing and how that makes me feel. And if that makes sense in the song, obviously sometimes there's always these little surprises and stuff. With a song like this, there's a lot of sophistication with the song, but absolutely no things that are difficult or fast. It's sophistication in its most stripped down version, which is something I love about the band. So I typically hear it, and if that's the first thing I'll hear, if there's a band that I'm just like, why is that in there, why did they even have that, and somewhat of a judgmental way, I'm like, that
Right.
doesn't make sense, or this or that. And bands like this oftentimes just don't have that, and you're just lost in not being distracted by what they're trying to show, if that makes sense.
It totally does, and it's actually I love the way you phrased it because it must be like like a filmmaker watching a movie is gonna notice the flaws, or my husband's
Yeah.
big into, like, lighting. He was a photographer, and so he
Mm.
notices lighting in different ways than, like, stuff that he calls out I would never even notice. So, yeah, I didn't never think about it
Right.
that way, but as a person who studied music theory, like, yeah, something that's out of place or doesn't fit in a song must stick out like a sore thumb to you.
Hmm. And sometimes people are just intentionally putting that in as like artistic wise,
Right.
which is cool. But it's usually when it's obviously not necessarily put in that way. It's just I feel like it's decreasing from the overall effect is when it more stands out.
Yeah. Well, and I don't want to give away too much from your book, but I really do, like I said in our conversations, I like your approach that really anybody can learn to play an instrument, and the
Hmm.
biggest limiter of that is our own, brain telling us that we can't do something. Can you talk a little bit about how you stumbled upon that? Like, how did you discover, like, you know what, really anybody can do this? It's just more about mindset than anything.
Um, I think it probably all started. My understanding of limiting beliefs started when I was teaching people, but I had to look back of when I was like 8 or 9.
Mhm.
I actually had this weird belief that guys couldn't play piano. I'm not sure where it came from. Probably
Okay.
I heard it somewhere, or I just didn't know anyone who did. And I brought it up really shyly to my mom, being like, oh, it's too bad I can't learn piano because I'm a guy, or something weird like that, whatever 8-year-old would say. And she was like, what? I know a lot of men who play. And that kind of started me off of, maybe that's not, maybe a lot of these things aren't true. And I kind of forgot that throughout the rest of my childhood. But then as I was working with students again, um, all of a sudden people would come up with crazy things that are like, oh, well, I can't play piano because my hands are too small, or this and that. And more as I taught people, I was like, okay, like, where are these beliefs coming from? And we create them for ourselves. Usually people tell them to us who have never done it themselves anyway. And it's
Yep.
just this revolving, like, belief that's pushed out on a lot of people. And it's a weird thing with music. People think if you can't be the best, then don't try. And you're like, don't try what? Like, I'm not trying to be, Taylor Swift or anything.
Right.
I just get benefits from music, and I can do that at my skill level. And in my case, I play a bunch of instruments now, and some of those instruments I will never get above beginner level because I don't have the place that I can play it. I don't have the time and all these different things, but I can enjoy that instrument at that level just because that's where it's fitting into my life and that's where I'm getting the benefit for myself. And as I kind of got that as, oh, well, this is my goal and I can get this, then what are other people's goals? Like, they don't even know what their goals are. And once they are like, well, I just want to strum some chords and have fun, I'm like, well, anyone can do that, literally. Like, you can get that benefit. And then I started to see that, well, we just have a very big misconception on our belief on music.
Yeah, I love that. And I think like I've even just since we originally spoke and, a few days ago, I've been thinking so much about the things I've told myself. And I say it out loud on the show a lot, like I'm a music lover with
Hmm.
zero musical talent, and I'm like, you know what? I need to stop doing that. I don't know if I have musical talent. I haven't really tried. I mean, I've picked up a guitar before and
Hmm.
was not like immediately a prodigy with it, but I doubt that many folks are. And so I think just speaking with you has made me sort of reframe like the way I talk to myself, even about my relationship to music, which is so personal and is so deep. Being a
Hmm.
non musician, and I keep thinking, like, ever since we spoke, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'm not a non musician. Maybe there's something there to discover. So, again, I just
So an
really,
interesting thing in that viewpoint, if you don't mind me interrupting,
no,
is
please.
so there's levels of engaging and being a part of music. And what you've done with your show has really dived into music in ways that probably a lot of musicians will never get that far. So in the world of learning and experiencing music, you are further along than tons and tons and tons of musicians. You just haven't worked on music through actually playing an instrument, but
Yeah.
you're already in the world. You just have to decide where else do I want to experience this, and how much time and how much effort, what benefits will I get from that. But you're already there.
Yeah.
You just haven't experienced it in the other ways.
No, I thank you for saying that. I love that. I think that's a
No problem.
nice thing to hear and a nice thing for me to like synthesize because I always say one of the things I think I shared this with you in our first conversation too is I love the way music has the ability to sort of drop you in, right? You can walk up to
Hmm.
someone and say like, "Hey, what song were you listening to in the car before you got in here?" And they like immediately you've got a conversation. You're in a spot and it's either a song they knew or a song they didn't. If they're like, oh, I don't remember, I didn't have the radio on, I'm like, oh, on to the next person. But when you are
Yep.
talking about music, like it'll drop you right into a place and time or something that is relevant or meaningful to that person. Or even if they were just driving and, a song that you've heard 1,000 times was on and they're like, oh, I don't know, I think it was, a song, I think it was Don't Stop Believin' by Journey, like, oh, okay,
Hmm.
you can at least then have a conversation about that. And you learn the first time they heard that song and you share the first time you heard it. And, if you loved the way it figured into The Sopranos or not, or whatever the case may be, it just allows you to immediately get into like the meat and potatoes of a conversation with someone without having to do like the where are you from? How old are you? Some of the basic
Yeah.
tropes that we fall into when we're first meeting people. So that's one thing that I love. And I do agree. Like I definitely go deep in that area. So I like
Hmm.
reframing it like that. Like I'm already in the world. I'm already into music and in it kind of in a deep way. So picking up an
Yeah.
instrument's just kind of another aspect of that.
Yep, definitely.
Super cool. Look at how you've turned me around already in 17 short minutes, Micah. Well, I did promise that we were talking a lot about duets today, and I teased this third
Mhm.
track. But the third track on our playlist today, and my first pick, is a song by an artist I cannot believe. I'm actually almost embarrassed to admit that we've not featured her on the show in 5 seasons. This is the
Really?
first time. Yeah, this is the first time a Tina Turner song has appeared. And the song that I chose is a song called The Best. Now, this is a song from 1989, and Tina Turner is just a force. If you've ever seen her perform, even
Hmm.
just a recorded performance, you feel it. I was lucky enough to see her live in my lifetime,
Oh,
and
wow.
it's just unlike anything you've ever seen. I mean, she is a powerhouse like nobody's business. Like you can literally see her muscles like bulging from the stage. Like it's insane. And of course, I did tease that this was this lots of duets featured heavily, and of course, Tina Turner was a solo artist when she made this album and this song, but of course, rose to fame as part of a duo with Ike and Tina Turner. Thank goodness she broke free and out on her own. If you've not
Yep.
seen What's Love Got to Do with It, I also highly recommend that movie, the story of Tina Turner, and that's what introduced the world to Angela Bassett. Also, Angela
Oh.
Bassett's first role was cast as Tina Turner. They searched high and low to find somebody that could pull off that role, and Angela Bassett ended up winning it. But one thing that I learned about this song was that it was originally sung by Bonnie Tyler, who sang Total Eclipse of the Heart and Holding Out for a Hero. She actually released this song first about a year before Tina Turner, and it did kind of well overseas, but it became the mega hit that we all know in 1989 from Tina Turner's version of the song. And the reason that I chose it this week is because as I was, reading your bio and digging in, you talked about music being a refuge for you in high school. And it made me think of this song because I was a big theater kid, theater nerd in high school. And every show that we did, we were very active competitors in one act play competitions. And we had like a show song, like an ensemble song that we would all listen to before we went on stage, that was kind of to like pump us up and get us ready for the performance. And I went back and forth because you picked the Phantom song. One of the songs that we picked was from Jekyll and Hyde.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so that song came to mind first, but then I was like, you know what? This is the one that really, like, when I talk about dropping into a time and place, this is one. And it's for a couple of reasons. Like, the song is clearly about, like young lovers or like reconnecting and this sort of like a fiery love affair. So it's funny to me. And I can remember even being, like 17, 18 and thinking it's kind of funny, some of these lyrics that we're all like, singing and holding hands as high school students. But again, it's about context, and it's about what a song means to you at whichever point it comes in and out of your life, right? And so this one dropped into my life in a time when I was focused on, theater and being part of an ensemble. So even though it's a love song, it reminds me of teamwork and friendship, because I think about standing around in this circle before every show with my friends, some of them who are still my friends today, a large majority of them even. And so every time I hear this song, I almost don't even hear what she's saying. And for a gal that's like such a big lyrics person, I just remember the feeling that I had of standing there with my friends in that exciting moment right before you go on stage to perform. And we all had each other's backs. And, we were really believing like we're the best. We're going to go out and, ace it tonight. It's going to be the best performance we've ever given. And I just love that. I loved being able to conjure that feeling again. And I love that songs are able to do that for us. Do you have any experience with this song at all? Was it a song that you knew?
So I did know it, and it was a song that's on one of those you can't believe this is a cover like
Yeah.
lists. There's it's probably one of the ones near the top actually, just because she did such an amazing job with it.
Yeah.
But I love your story about being on stage and with that group of people, because if you haven't done either any type of acting or any type of on-stage stuff, there's right behind the curtain is just the most interesting feeling and atmosphere in the world.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be quiet, but you're full of tense excitement. And I can think of a few songs that we either used to play or that we had to perform, and that would be running through my mind beforehand. And it brings me back, right to that moment.
Yeah.
But as for, I was listening to the song again today just to, refresh and everything. And I was like, what is this bringing me back to? And it was a movie, but the song's not in it. It's just Tina Turner's in it. And that's Mad Max. She
Yeah.
plays on the Thunderdome or whatever. And I
Thunderdome.
was like,
Yes.
that whole era of movies, just that song brings me back to that feel of all that. And it's just her.
Yeah.
It's not even the song. It's just she was such a big presence of a
Yep.
person that in even acting she did amazing. So there's certain people that create, and who knows, in the personal lives, a lot of people do create a persona to show people,
Right.
but it's just so big that it infected every part of anything she was on. So
Yeah.
she was
It's
an
so
amazing
true.
person.
There'll never be another performer like her. I really feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe she's been gone over a year now. It was funny when I was doing the
Mm-hmm.
research for the show. I'm like, wow, I can't believe it's been a year already. That's insane. A year and a half, actually. So, yeah, I'm glad we finally ended the Tina Turner drought on the show, and
Yeah.
we now have a song. And then I kind of changed directions here. We went from this big, loud, powerful song to something that that really sort of wound it down a little bit. And I think that this one, because I was listening to Hollow Cove so much after getting your
Mm-hmm.
picks, I found myself kind of wanting to live in that space a little bit more, just calming down and slowing down. And this is a song that my last pick here is a song by not a super well known band, but this song is special to me for a lot of reasons, but one of the primary ones is that it featured on a sleepy time playlist that I had for my daughter when she was a baby. So this song was like put her to sleep most nights of her young life. And so I love that about it. But it's a song called Painting by Chagall by a band called the Weepies. This is from their second album called Say I Am You, which was released in 2005. And I just think it's such like a sweet, beautiful song. It's peaceful and it's calming. And I think as I was trying to think of how to describe it, I read a story that Deb Talon, the band is Steve Tannen and Deb Talon, and Deb Talon was talking about the name, how they chose the name the Weepies. And she said it came from a few different sources, but one was, you know, those sort of old movies that were called Weepies, where you could basically be
Mm-hmm.
guaranteed that if you needed a good cry, you could go see one of these movies and bring your hanky and have a good time. And we wanted to be able to provide that for people. We wanted to make music that touches them and moves them in that way, the place where tears come for joy and for sorrow. And I was like, you know what? That beautifully sums it up. Thank you, Deb
Mm-hmm.
Talon. That's what I feel from listening to this song. Was
So
this
I
a
had never
band?
heard.
Never. Okay, I
No,
wondered.
I had never heard this before, but I started listening to it, and first off, it's great. I really enjoyed it, and it was like, have you ever heard of the band She and Him by
Yeah.
Zoe Deschanel? So
Yeah.
it was like Zoe Deschanel singing with like Simon and Garfunkel
Yeah.
mixed together, and I was like, this is really interesting. Why have I never heard of it? But some of the lyrics I really liked. I think it was the very end. It was when they go into everyone says you can't, you can't, you can't.
Yeah.
Um, but if they get the chance, they'll fly like we do too. Like
Yep.
I get that attitude from so many people where they're just scared. Like especially with music, they're scared to try. But they would, if I gave them a chance, and they were like, yeah, if I could do that, then I would. Because they know that getting in that zone and everything, and whether that's love or music or so many different things, people are afraid, they just don't think they can do it.
Yeah.
But if they could, then they would.
Definitely. And I think like right back to your original point, like they think that they can't because they're telling
Mm-hmm.
themselves they can't oftentimes, you know. And I think that there are so many great lyrics in this song. I even love the way the song opens. It says, "Thunder rumbles in the distance, a quiet intensity. I am willful. Your insistence is tugging at the best of me. You're the moon. I'm the water. You're Mars calling up Neptune's daughter." And it's just like
Mm-hmm.
it's like poetry. It almost makes me cry. I just think it's so pretty and so well said. And then they repeat this line a bit, and this is something that I hear this sometimes in my head if something bad or unexpected happens. Sometimes rain that's needed falls. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you don't want it to be a rainy day, but sometimes rain that's needed falls. Like, and sometimes when you think you're all out of freebies or opportunities, like the rain will fall. You know, it's, I just, it helps me surrender that line, you know, like it makes me think about you're not in control sometimes. And just like sometimes it needs to rain and it's going to, and that's okay. And sometimes when you think it's not going to rain, it's going to, and that's okay too,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
And then like to your point too of like I think this comes towards the end of the song too, but I love this. I think it's beautiful. It says, "In our rooms filled with laughter, we make hope from every small disaster." Also,
Mm.
just like hits me in the heart. I think it's so beautiful.
I did have to look up what the paintings of Chagall was,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
describing exactly what her lyrics are. So
Yep.
that makes sense.
Yeah, it's
um,
really
but it was very unique painting too. I had never seen it before, so it's very interesting.
yeah, there are so like it definitely it mirrors perfectly. It's a great title, and I think it fits with the song. I also too I find I'm interested to hear what your thoughts on this as a music theorist, but her singing style is so interesting to me. It's almost like she isn't opening her mouth all the way, but yet her
Mm.
voice is still like so clear and beautiful. I don't know if you noticed that at all, but it sounds almost like she's like holding back a little bit with her mouth, but then this amazing voice is coming out. I just think it's an interesting, like the way she sings is very interesting to me.
So it's one of the few people that I can compare to once again is Zoe Deschanel,
Yeah.
because they sing in a similar way, and I believe that you wouldn't be able to have this very well, before we had good microphones and stuff, because I don't think it projects much at all. Like she is singing very quiet, and that is part of that. People like Tina Turner are
Yeah.
belting it.
Right.
You would hear her no matter what. Whereas, Zoe Deschanel and her are singing very quiet and controlled, and mostly they're singing. To not get too technical, but there's guys and girls have a falsetto and a chest voice, and they're
Yeah.
mostly singing in their chest voice, but and that's quite a bit lower. But then being that quiet, like almost whisper, um, but it just has that different feel to it, because
Yeah.
it feels more intimate in a lot of ways, because you don't talk to people when you're really close super loud. It's almost like she's right there.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it makes the whenever Steve comes in sort of at the end, it makes those harmonies more rich as well, because you feel like you're sort of
Mm-hmm.
involved in a very intimate moment with the two of them. I agree.
Yeah.
Oh, so much fun talking with you about all this, Micah. Thank you so much for sharing what you're listening to this week. Again, like I love your attitude around learning how to play an instrument and just music in general. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me on. It was so much fun.
Yay! Well, listeners, if you would like to learn more about Micah, you can visit his website at www.speakingmusic.online. That's SPEAKINGmusic.ONLINE. And there you can find a link to his online classes, his audiobook, everything that you could possibly want to find out about Micah is there. So definitely check that out. And as always, please be sure to follow, download, and share this show. And if you love listening, drop us a review on Apple or Spotify. And last but not least, to stay informed on all things Super Awesome Mix and what are you listening to, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Super Awesome Mix. Thanks for listening, and please join me again next week to find your new favorite song.